Aroldis Chapman is officially a member of the Boston Red Sox. Find out what that means for the team on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it is all completely free. So you might as well tune in because Locked On is your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the show. You are halfway through the week. I feel like that week after Thanksgiving break always feels like such a drag because you go from having this short week to having to go back to having a regular size week, and it goes by super slow, but you are halfway through. It is almost Friday, and to ring in the middle of your week, the Red Sox did make their first semi-big move of the offseason on Tuesday. They agreed to a 1-year, $10.75 million contract with left-handed reliever Aroldis Chapman. Now, the team hasn't confirmed this yet because the deal is pending a physical. The Red Sox were looking for left-handed help for the bullpen and lands 36-year-old Aroldis Chapman. Now, the thing is, there are things that he could provide from a baseball standpoint, and I'm going to get into that on today's show, as well as talking about an overview of the bullpen and kind of going over what the Red Sox have right now with the addition of Chapman, and also going over this weird rule that Rob Manfred is thinking about implementing into Major League Baseball. So when it comes to Aroldis Chapman, when it comes to him and his off the field stuff, there are things that have happened with him in his past that are not reassuring. And when he was pitching with other teams, I really, as a baseball fan, didn't want to root for him because he just had all of these things that he did off the field that really turned fans away from him. And I think the fact that those issues in the past have happened, it has made Red Sox fans very skeptical about bringing Chapman here when they come to the realization that they're going to have to root for the fact that he's going to make the team better and they're going to want to get the best version of him as a pitcher. So that's a really hard situation mentally for a lot of Red Sox fans, myself included, to get used to, is how do we go about this emotionally, because this guy did some damage in his outside life off of the baseball field, and it's a little uncomfortable having to root for somebody like that. But when it comes to his on-field production, he does still have the ability to pitch at 100 miles an hour. In 2024, he went 5-5 with the Pirates with a 3.79 ERA over 68 games. This was his fourth team in the past 3 seasons that he's pitched for. The 36-year-old struck out 98 batters in 61 2/3 innings with Pittsburgh while holding opponents to a 165 expected average, which ranked in MLB's 99th percentile. His triple-digit fastball remains his signature pitch. That's a pitch that he's going to continue to own. He throws that with tremendous velocity and provides a potential devastating lefty power arm for the Red Sox out of the pen. That fastball clocked in as high as 105 miles an hour this past season, but it averaged just under 99 miles an hour. So still no joke. And it helped him fuel a 37.1% strikeout rate. So he gets tons of swings and misses on that deadly pitch. In 2024, he passed Hall of Fame candidate Billy Wagner for the most strikeouts of all time for a lefty reliever. Red Sox fans also remember August 13th, 2017 very clearly when Rafael Devers took him deep, belting a 102.8 mile per hour fastball over the wall in left center to tie it up in the ninth inning against the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball. What a moment that was for Devers. It was the fourth homer in his career and the second Chapman had allowed to a left-handed hitter at that point in his career. And the Red Sox ended up winning the game 3-2 in 10 innings. So a beautiful scene for Red Sox fans to remember. But he's also a super successful pitcher in terms of accolades. That incident in 2017 was part of his second stint with the Yankees. A year earlier, New York traded him to the Cubs on July 25th in a deal that brought Gleyber Torres to the Bronx, and that set Chapman up to be on one of the most historic teams of all time, the 2016 Cubs, who won their first World Series since 1908. He defected from Cuba in 2009 and signed with the Reds in 2010 and spent his first 6 seasons with Cincinnati, pitching to a 2.17 ERA while picking up his first 146 saves. So it's not like the guy isn't accomplished. In his career, he has an 87.5 save percentage, which ranks third among active pitchers behind Kenley Jansen and Craig Kimbrell, who are both at 88.2. So he's certainly somebody who has shown for a lot of his career that he can be reliable, 7-time All-Star and 2-time World Series champion. My concern is the consistency, because when it comes to his ability to pitch well in crunch time, that's when he starts to fold sometimes. He has a lot left in the tank if he can dial in that command. And he's somebody who can pitch in the back end of the bullpen for the Red Sox. He averaged 98 strikeouts to 39 walks last year. So he does generate the walks because he tends to lose his command sometimes. But he's somebody who, if he can really lock in, he could be a reliable pitcher in the late innings for Boston. Now, he definitely should not be the closer. The Red Sox need another pitcher to come in and close games, whether that's somebody they already have here on the staff or they bring in somebody new. They need somebody with the ability to be reliable to close games. And Chapman obviously used to close games all the time, but he has spent a lot of the last few seasons not in a closing role and more in a setup type of role. And that's where I picture him to be with the Red Sox, is in that setup type of role where he can pitch the 7th or 8th inning, and then the Red Sox can get to their more high leverage arms after that. So when it comes to Chapman and pitching in Boston, I'm looking at that consistency. I'm looking for him to be able to develop a sense of dominance from a pitching standpoint that we have seen from him in other parts of his career that I want him to go back to. But the Red Sox would be smart to not use him in a closing role and look to other options, whether that's internally or externally. He can pitch in that 7th or 8th inning and be valuable for this Red Sox team. The other thing to think about too is this is a short, cheaper deal. 1 year for $10 million is not bad in the grand scheme of things. So worst case scenario is he doesn't work out and he's not able to have that level of consistency in Boston that the Red Sox organization wants him to, and then they just don't bring him back the following season. But with where the Red Sox are at right now and needing some left-handed help in the bullpen, it's a move that makes sense from a baseball standpoint. That arm and the velocity that he has can enforce the bullpen tremendously if he's on his A game. So I don't necessarily disagree with the move from a baseball standpoint, as long as they use him the right way and don't rely on him to go out there and be the closer. But in regards to him going out and expecting to be welcomed in Red Sox Nation with open arms, that part I'm a little bit hesitant about because of his past and the fact that he doesn't have the most polished record. And Red Sox fans definitely are not very happy about the fact that Craig Breslow and the front office obviously are okay with that past track record that he has and feel like maybe it's been long enough now to where it's fine and they don't have to worry about it anymore. But either way, it's definitely something that will make Red Sox fans hesitant about cheering for him, but he will be a Boston Red Sox in 2025. It'll be interesting to see how he does in spring training, because if he dominates in spring training, I think there's a chance the Red Sox do consider him to close for this upcoming season, but I'm not on board with that. I think the Red Sox have better options already internally, or they could go and pursue somebody externally that could be the guy to close games for this Boston Red Sox team. But overall, he has put up some solid numbers even as recently as this past year. So we'll have to see what happens, because ultimately at the end of the day, the Red Sox needed relief help and they got a guy here. So we'll have to see where he fits into everything. And coming up, speaking of where he fits in, I'm going to be talking about the Red Sox bullpen and where it's at right now and where we could see Chapman slot into that group. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. If you are looking to win lots of money quickly, I'm telling you, FanDuel absolutely is the place for you. You will not regret it, because you can bet on all different types of sports and win tons of money in the process. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that, because once you get hooked on FanDuel, I'm telling you, you will not want to go back. It's the best place for sports betting. The Red Sox have made a move to add to their bullpen by adding free agent reliever Aroldis Chapman. Now, the Red Sox did need left-handed help in the pen, so he's somebody who could provide value in more ways than one by being a setup man or possibly a closer, although I'm not buying that, because the Red Sox already have some other options in their bullpen right now that they could use to close. Now, here is where the Red Sox bullpen is at with the addition of Aroldis Chapman. So you have Zach Penrod, who's a lefty, now Chapman, who's a lefty, Brennan Bernardino, who's a lefty, Garrett Whitlock, who's a righty, Josh Winkowski, who's a righty, Greg Weiser, who's a righty, Justin Slayton, who's a righty, Liam Hendriks, who's a righty, Zach Kelly, who's a righty, and Chase Shugart, who's a righty. Now, from those names, adding Chapman in there allows for them to have another lefty arm in a very right-handed heavy bullpen. So that's a positive, but the question is, where does he fit in? Because you have Liam Hendriks coming back, who didn't pitch at all this past season. So it's hard to really know what kind of pitcher he's going to be in 2025. But my hope is that he can come back and be solid, and that after recovering from Tommy John, his arm comes back and is better than ever. That would be ideal for the Red Sox, because then he could maybe be in that closing spot where he pitches that 9th inning for the Red Sox in close games to help them win it. So that could be a possibility. And I think when it comes to making the decision on a closer, it's going to come down to what these guys look like in spring training and who is the most effective in regards to pitching in high leverage situations. And that's the type of guy that they will allow to maybe get the opportunity to close out games early on in the season. So Liam Hendriks is definitely a possibility for that. Then you also have Garrett Whitlock, who's coming back from injury as well and has bounced around between being both a starter and being a reliever for the Red Sox. So when he is back and healthy, my hope is that he'll pitch in the bullpen too, because I've always found that Garrett Whitlock is more dangerous when he pitches out of the pen than when he pitches as a starter. So I would like to see him get the opportunity to be considered for the closing spot, because I've always found Whitlock to be better and more effective in short stints. When he's pitching for several innings in a game, that's when you start seeing injuries from him, or you start to see him not be as effective. Whereas if he goes out there and he only pitches 1 or 2 innings, his stuff is deadly. That's what I really like about Whitlock. But for the longest time, the Red Sox were really insistent on making him a starter. So then they moved him into the rotation, and he wasn't as effective as he got deeper into games. And then his injuries would pile up. So to me, it makes sense for Garrett Whitlock to be a 1 to 2 inning type of guy. And that's where pitching out of the bullpen makes sense. So if you have Whitlock pitching out of the pen, why not give him the chance to get considered for closing games? Because I am a huge Garrett Whitlock fan, and I believe that if he's utilized the right way, then we can really take advantage of and capitalize on the fact that we have somebody with such special and lethal stuff. And I've just been having a hard time watching the Red Sox and the way they've utilized him over the last few years, because I don't think it's the most effective. And I don't think that what they're getting from him is as much as they can be getting from him. So he's another possibility to close games. Then you have Justin Slayton, who showed a lot of potential in 2024 and was arguably the best reliever the Red Sox had that year. He showed a ton of consistency in his relief role, and he was a guy that the Red Sox could go to and trust to pitch out of that bullpen effectively so many times. And with Justin Slayton, he's another guy who Red Sox fans were excited to go out there and pitch. And if it was a close game and the Red Sox brought Justin Slayton in, I was really excited to have him out there, because I felt like he was somebody that I could truly trust to take care of business when he was out there pitching. So he's another guy I'm considering. He's definitely no more than a 2, possibly 3 inning guy, but I wouldn't even stretch him out that long unless he really shows that he has the capability of doing that and not fatigue and wear out his arm a ton, especially because he did get injured during the season in 2024. So I am going a little bit conservatively when it comes to experimenting with the role of Justin Slayton and where he fits into this whole thing, because he's somebody who, as a 1 or 2 inning guy, could be very effective. So why not try him out in the closing slot? So he's definitely an opportunity for somebody that could close games. And all 3 of those names that I've mentioned, between Liam Hendriks, Justin Slayton, and Garrett Whitlock, I feel would also be better closers than Aroldis Chapman. Then you have Zach Penrod and Chase Shugart, both of whom got opportunities to pitch in the majors in 2024. Still a very small sample size for them, but Zach Penrod definitely showed a lot of positives this past season as somebody who could be a key contributor out of the pen. And then you also have Luis Guerrero, who is another guy who I haven't even mentioned yet, who briefly got a stint in the majors in 2024 towards the end of the season and showed a lot of positive signs too. So if you take those 2 in Penrod and Guerrero, I'm not placing them in the closer spot. I don't think they have enough experience yet to be trusted in that role. But if the Red Sox didn't want to sign another reliever that they could maybe make into the closer, or sign a straight up closer who has just done that his whole career, then if you're looking at guys internally who could take the closing spot, I'm not looking to one of those 2 guys or Chase Shugart to be in that spot. And even a guy who got a call up and started for the Red Sox a couple times is Richard Fitz, a guy who the Red Sox were kind of playing around with to see where he would be most effective and what he could do for Boston. And he's somebody who could also be considered for the pen if they do decide that Garrett Whitlock's going to start, or they bring in another starting pitcher and they don't really need another starter. I really liked what I saw from Fitz. He did have a rough outing his last time out in the last week of the season, but generally after only making a few starts in a Boston Red Sox uniform, he did overall look solid. And I liked the stuff that he brought to the table. So from the standpoint of where does he fit into all this, I think he definitely deserves more of a shot in 2025 and deserves more playing time because he showed that he could be an effective arm for the Red Sox. So then the question turns to, does it make more sense to make him a long reliever or substitute one of these guys for him and maybe send Zach Penrod or Luis Guerrero back down to AAA to gain more experience there? Or maybe Fitz is the guy that starts the season in AAA because they feel like he still needs more practice after what happened his last time out in Boston. So there are a lot of things they could do with those guys in terms of moving them around or keeping them up in the majors. Then you have Zach Kelly, Josh Winkowski, and Greg Weiser, all of whom struggled during the season in 2024. Kelly, I feel like a lot of it had to do with overuse. He wasn't overly effective for the whole season, but he was at least a little bit more effective in the first half than he was in the second half. And when guys were getting injured all over the place in the second half of the season, Zach Kelly was somebody that the Red Sox constantly kept going to throw. So in that regard, Zach Kelly to me is somebody who, yes, could have another shot maybe as long as he's not being overworked, because I saw a lot of scenarios in which the Red Sox were using him over and over and over again, and it was clear that he was getting fatigued. So I'd like to see them try to limit a little bit more how much they use him. Then you have Greg Weiser and Josh Winkowski, who had their good days and their bad days. Lots of days in which they struggled to get outs and other days in which they pitched well. So the inconsistency from those two definitely concerns me as well. Guys who I'm not keeping around if I had the choice in a perfect world. Guys who I don't really trust could get the job done on a given basis. So if the Red Sox decide they want to keep them in the pen, those should absolutely not be guys they go to in high leverage situations, because to me, they're definitely weaker compared to some of the other relievers that the Red Sox do have. So that's generally the makeup right now of the Red Sox bullpen. And I think there are still decisions to be made on who's going to play where. And I think spring training will determine a lot of that. But Aroldis Chapman to me is somebody who provides some diversity in the bullpen, somebody who's going to hopefully go out there and be electric in a 7th or 8th inning type of role, if that's where they feel makes the most sense to put him. So I'm looking at the situation and saying, obviously, he's not a great person. It's going to be hard to root for him. But as Red Sox fans, we have to hope that this works out for Boston, because he's a guy who the Red Sox are going to lean on out of the bullpen. So we've got to see what happens with that. But coming up next, I'm going to be talking about a weird rule that Rob Manfred is thinking about maybe implementing into Major League Baseball. And I really don't agree with it at all. Don't forget that Locked On Red Sox is available to you wherever you get your podcasts Monday through Friday. I am here to talk about all things going on with the team, and hopefully now the market will start to heat up a little bit. Hopefully players will start to sign places that are free agents, and hopefully the Red Sox can continue to lock in more guys who are going to help their team to get better for 2025. And while this is all going on, you can listen to me give an update every day on what's going on with this team. Just follow Locked On Red Sox wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also follow me on Twitter. The show is at LO_Red Sox. And I post a lot of content there, including upcoming show content. If I have a guest, I post episodes with a guest on there. And I just interact with other Red Sox fans on there. So make sure that you do that as well and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. While the Red Sox focus on their team for 2025 and what they can do to improve, meanwhile, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, is talking about potentially adding a golden at-bat rule to Major League Baseball. This rule would basically allow a team to choose one at-bat in every game to use their best hitter, regardless of where they're at in the lineup. So it would basically mean that if there's a point in the game where it's a key situation and you don't trust anybody but your best hitter to go out there, you can put them in that spot even if they just batted right before that. And I just want to say, nothing about this rule is appealing to me. What is Rob Manfred thinking? Do not try to change the game of baseball drastically. If you are trying to grow the game, this is not the way to do it, because what's going to happen is you're going to lose a lot of loyal baseball fans who have been following this sport for years and don't want the game to change that drastically. For example, if you have the bases loaded and nobody out and Shohei Ohtani comes up to the plate, and you're a pitcher and you strike him out, then the other team decides, oh, it's bases loaded, one out. We really want to take advantage of this situation and capitalize it and make sure that we are getting some runs on the board here. So then they can bring Ohtani right back in right after that pitcher worked so hard to strike him out. I don't find that to be fair at all. And it really could rattle an opposing pitcher. And it kind of takes away from a lot of the strategy of the pinch hitter and how an opposing pitcher can work around a lineup. I just feel like it takes away from a lot of that competitive aspect that fans like. So if they add this rule, I just don't like the idea of a team being able to call anybody up to the plate at a certain time, because then what's the point of guys batting average, and what's the point of having a pitcher do all of this planning to strategize how to throw to a certain hitter if that hitter can get another shot in the very next at bat? I just don't think that's fair. And I think if I'm Rob Manfred, I am 100% not implementing that. And in regards to making it more exciting, maybe you could argue that, okay, if you strike out Shohei Ohtani and he comes back up and you strike him out again, or he grounds out, or you just force him to not have a productive at bat, then people could argue, okay, well, this pitcher just beat him twice. So that says a lot about the pitcher. Sure, but a lot of times you're not going to get Ohtani twice in a row because, hello, he's Shohei Ohtani, which means he likely knows how to adjust and knows how to alter his approach at the plate if he sees the same pitcher one at bat right after the other. And also for the pitcher, what if you get tired? What if you're pitching to Ohtani and then he has to come up again and you're like, are you kidding me? I thought I was going to go to another hitter where I can adjust what I'm throwing a little bit. It just takes away from a lot of the strategy. And from a manager perspective, it makes it hard to know, well, should I pull this pitcher now because they're having Ohtani bat 2 at bats in a row? Or do I keep him in because he's my best option? And if somebody's going to strike out Ohtani twice in a row, it's going to be him. And yes, that strategy is there in general of saying, okay, when do I pull this pitcher? Do I take the gamble on keeping him in? Do I trust somebody else? What do I do? That aspect of it is always going to be there. I just feel like from a player standpoint, it's a little weird because you work so hard to get the best players around the league to swing and miss if you're a pitcher, and you're so focused on getting that out that if they then come up to bat again, then they get another chance to get a hit, and then their batting average would be a little bit skewed because that's, oh, they're getting extra at-bats in this game. So I don't like the idea at all. I think it takes away from baseball a lot as we know it. And I think if Manfred wants to implement other rules, that's fine if he does, but it can't be rules that are that drastic. Like the ghost runner rule, for example. Yes, I was bothered by that rule at first, but eventually it grew on me and it became something that was kind of like second nature to me, and I don't mind it anymore. But if I'm the Red Sox and I'm facing the Yankees and Aaron Judge comes up and hits a home run, then he comes up in the very next at bat and hits another home run. What are we doing here? I just don't like it. I think in the grand scheme of things, this rule completely takes away from a lot of what we know and love about the sport of baseball. And I think some of the rules that Manfred has implemented in the past have been fine because they haven't drastically changed the game that much. But this rule to me, I feel like would drastically change the game. That, okay, the Red Sox have Juan Soto and, you know, they had Rafael Devers who just struck out. So now they need Soto to get on base. So then if he gets on base, So then do they put in a pinch runner every time because they want him to come up to bat again? Would there be a limit on how many games in a row you can use this specific hitter, or would it be that specific hitter every game? There's a lot of questions that I would have about it when it comes to it. The moral of the story is I don't like the idea at all. I think it completely takes away from what baseball is supposed to be. And I think if a hitter comes up and can't deliver, too bad. That's on them. And if a pitcher works really hard to strike out that hitter, they should be rewarded for that and not have to face that hitter again until they at least get through the rest of the lineup again. So we'll have to see what Rob Manfred does, but I think a lot of people around Major League Baseball would be unhappy if he implements that rule. I do appreciate you tuning in to Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure to tune in to Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who brings a lot of humor to the table and can keep you updated on all things going on across the league. So if you want to know what's going on with the other teams, what signings everybody else makes, he is your number one source for that. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts right after this. As always, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.